Hey, hi guys. Welcome to We Talk Cricket. And today's video is a special one. Our very first guest joins us for a unique conversation. This is an English summer special. I'm thrilled to join by Ben from England, a new voice in writing, a passionate cricket enthusiast, and a thoughtful writer who regularly shares his insights through Substack. I will really put his Substack link in the description. You can go and see his work. So with India touring England for 5 Test match series, there is no better time really to get an English perspective. From conditions, matchups to the stories and context that make this series so compelling. So welcome Ben to We Talk Cricket, and just introduce yourself a little, and then I can tell the agenda, and then we can go and have a brilliant discussion. Is what I'm expecting.
Thanks very much, Akshay. First thing to say is just thank you for inviting me to be on your podcast. Really a pleasure to be here and talk about the England-India series that we're all getting so excited about. And yeah, just a little bit about me, lifelong cricket fan, mediocre cricket player, and yeah, relatively new to cricket writing, sharing some stuff on Substack, so really enjoying that. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so I think thanks for joining. So straight away I'll just start with what's inside for our viewers. So we will deep dive into the upcoming India tour of England, exploring whether England's home dominant still holds the strong in Bazball era, from assessing India's challenge in swinging conditions. Even it's a dry summer as well there in UK, and all including shifting. I mean, England especially, they are moving away from Anderson and Broad era. So we need to look into that. And when I talk about dry summer, it is all about, I mean, it will put the spin into your mind. So we need to talk about it. And also, it's going to be a huge summer for Ben Stokes as well as Brendan McCullum, captainship, and all. We are going to look at the media buzz. Public sentiment and the broader WTC implication on England, even being a successful team. So sit back, relax, and enjoy, guys. So straight away, we'll just go in, and with the first and foremost thing is about. I mean, Ben, like England have a very good record. I mean, recently. So what do you think about their home turf advantage, recent advantages, and after especially Ben Stokes has taken the regime?
Yeah, I think the first thing to say is that, I mean, like most teams, England have a clear home advantage in tests, right? So, that's the same for all teams. Test cricket has a big home advantage. It's the same for India. Um, last last 10 years at home, certainly we've got 59% win rate on tests, so 19 from 32, and but in the Bazball era, as we now call it, although they don't use that term themselves. So since Stokes and McCullum took over, 75% of tests at home have won, so 15 from 20, which is pretty phenomenal. And then away that drops to 50-50, so eight from 16. So yeah, there's a clear home advantage. But just for comparison, I looked at India over the last 10 years, and they are 72% wins at home and 47% away. So
even after getting, I mean, 3-0 whitewashed against Kiwis, right?
even after the New Zealand series, which I'm assuming you don't want to talk about.
No.
So I think that those are quite similar numbers for India and England, home and away, and I think it mostly stems from conditions. So
I mean, what does, because sorry, I mean, what this series mean for England? I mean, especially from English lens, that it seemed like an redemption arc, or how do you? I mean, this home advantage in the series feels like.
I think that's a really interesting question. I'm not sure it's seen as a redemption arc, mainly because I think we pretty much always expect to lose in India. So I don't think that there's kind of maybe there was a little bit more expectation with it being the first time we'd traveled to India in the Stokes era, but I think we always expect to lose in India, and it's a real surprise if we don't. That great team with that Alistair Cook led that won in India was the kind of exception that proves the rule. So we expect to lose in India. We expect to be much more competitive at home. So I don't think losing in India was really seen as kind of a stumble as such or a surprise. But losing at home certainly would be. We've got a fantastic record at home under Stokes and McCullum. We haven't lost a series. The worst result was a draw. So, but kind of taking a step back a second, I think more widely, the next 10 test matches are definitely being seen as a kind of acid test of the Bazball era. So potentially kind of defining the legacy of Stokes and McCullum. So you've got 5 tests against India, and then we'll get to Australia and play 5 there. So there's definitely some pressure there for sure. And I think that there's no way that we would want to go into an away Ashes series off the back of a loss at home to India. So there's definitely pressure there, and maybe more so than previous summers.
Yeah, brilliant, Ben. So, I mean, you have touched upon baseball. So, the next we are going to discuss on baseball at home. I mean, I think you have touched upon Stokes and Brendan McCullum is being a very, very attractive, entertaining, as well as it started to produce result, right? At home. I mean, how people from England has been like looking at them, and are people thinking that it still has to evolve, or like Michael Vaughan used to say, like they need to use their common sense sometimes, because whenever the things really get tougher, right, they are attacking a lot more. Right now, they are a little bit like changing and as well as trying to evolve from them, or what do you think? Is it a proven one, or it's still evolving in terms of home as well as in the overall context of these things?
I mean, I think it's been tested pretty well. So we've played pretty much everyone and had some really good results, particularly at home. We had that one-off test against India that was held over from the previous years, but the Ashes, which arguably we should have won and didn't, but we also beaten New Zealand, West Indies, Sri Lanka, South Africa. So I think as a kind of ethos, it's been tested pretty well. And I think in terms of kind of a Bazball 2.0 version, I think that I don't think McCullum and Stokes will see it like that. I think they're going to stick to the script, and they're kind of fully bought into their way of playing. Fans, and particularly you mentioned Michael Vaughan, he's kind of always quite vocal, say that they want a kind of a new version with a bit more of a blend of aggression and being a bit more pragmatic. But I just don't think Stokes and McCullum see it that way. I think they're kind of fully bought into pedal to the metal and play the way they play. So I don't think they're really going to change. Although there are these calls from certain pundits to say why can't you just play more sensibly? But I think as a fan, you've got to recognise that you can't enjoy it when they win like that. I'm thinking the result that we had in Pakistan, that test match where we scored 500 on the first day and kind of forced a result that wouldn't have seemed possible. You can't enjoy things like that and then criticize them when it goes wrong. You have to take the rough with the smooth. And also, like, it's easy to forget that we were terrible before Stokes and McCullum took over. We had an awful record. I think one win from 19 or something like that. So, speaking as a fan rather than a pundit, I'm just enjoying this ride that we're on and remembering how bad it was before.
Yeah. So how will England approach India differently compared to the Ashes? Because like every time an Ashes is there, it's all about having an eye towards that. Especially this set of team actually having produced result. I mean, how are you really expecting them to see this series, and how? I mean, in terms of going into the series.
I don't really think they're going to approach it any differently. And I think whatever bowlers are thrown at us, we will always bat aggressively. I think we'll definitely be India's attack presents a slightly different challenge with a blend of seam and spin. But I think we'd probably be way more worried about facing Bumrah than the spinners. Jadeja's a fantastic player, but is he going to be more of a threat than Nathan Lyon last year? I think Kuldeep could come into play, but I don't think these pitches are going to be really super helpful to spin. I think it's all going to be about seam, and it's going to be Bumrah's going to be the key man here.
Yeah. So I think in terms of that particular pot, right, I wanted to ask you about Ravichandran Ashwin going into this, like, because Nathan Lyon is always being very effective spinner. And I felt always from an Indian point of view, this is the wrong time for Ashwin to really get retired compared, because it's a driest summer in UK. And anyway, you expect lot of spin to be bowled. So we are going to straight away get into the Indian threat and English condition, because I think already Ben has touched about like who will have what effect based on that, and we have discussed about the Bazball as well. So who do you really think like which Indian can have a threat towards? I mean, you have touched upon Jasprit Bumrah. So what do you think up on? You can expand more on Bumrah or any other player who you are really thought that they will be a threat for Indian England team.
I think the first thing to say is you talk about Ravi Ashwin. I think England will be very very relieved and pleased that he's not on the tour and has retired, because I think he has a great record against our batsmen in all conditions, and I think he's kind of he's very good at he's a little bit like Shane Warne in that he's good at getting into the mind of the opposition, and I think he kind of had the wood over a couple of our batsmen, and also he presents quite a threat with the bat. He always seems to score runs here, so I think that's big shoes to fill for Ashwin, and you're going to be relying on Jadeja a lot, and I'm not sure whether you're going to play Kuldeep, but I hope to see Kuldeep, because I think he's a fantastic bowler, and he'll give a real point of difference to your attack. And I think
sorry to cut you.
Carry on.
Yeah, Kuldeep Yadav actually, when he's in our team, right, especially a team like England who plays a lot of sweeps and reverse sweeps, you can expect them that overspin kind of a bowler really have a bigger impact. That is what it happened when England toured India. So I mean, the only issue, and especially from Gigi's perspective, would be number 8. If Kuldeep plays, he has to play at number 8. It really makes the batting very lighter, is what the management will think. But personally, I would want Kuldeep to be in the game because of the reasons I have mentioned earlier, because of the shots which they really play. So that would really help them to come across. And how is England viewing Shubman Gill's captainship? Or any particular batter you are saying he would be, because I think people are not, I mean, they don't have their old guards, right? No Rohit, no Virat Kohli, and there is Rishabh Pant, Gill, SSV Jaiswal. I mean, who do you think, especially first, please touch upon the batters or any particular batter you think that who could have a threat in English conditions, and then you can touch upon Chuman Gill's captainship or what you are expecting.
I think obviously Virat and Rohit retiring, that's going to be a huge miss. Their experience as well as their talent will be missed. But I think with the likes of I'm particularly keen on Sai Siddharthan. Been following him through the IPL, and I just think he's got the technique for Test cricket and the temperament for Test cricket. So I'm really excited to see him. And I think you've definitely got the right players to challenge. Virat's going to be a huge miss because he was so competitive and attritional, and whether he was captain or not captain, he was always kind of inspiring the team to get through those tough situations. So I think he's a big miss, but I think with the likes of Siddharthan and Nair, India definitely have the right players to replace them long term, and I'm very interested to see what the batting order is and whether KL Rahul opens, and then you've got maybe Siddharthan at 3, and where Gill bats. I think I would personally say that he should bat 4. but we'll see what happens there. And I think you touched on how we view his captaincy, and he's a new face, and I don't think really England will have any expectations about his captaincy because he's got so little captaincy experience certainly in the Red Bull game. I think Stokes might well have chatted to his old mate Joss Butler and asked him about the experience of playing under Gill for Gujarat Titans, and how Shubman thinks about the game. I think if I was Ben Stokes, I would definitely have picked up the phone and had a word with Joss. But I don't think, I'm not sure we would have any specific plans to kind of test him tactically or anything like that. But it'll be interesting to see what how he captains in first captaincy experience in quite a difficult series against quite aggressive opponents in foreign conditions. And this Bazball approach is all about transferring pressure back onto the opposition and back onto the opposing captain. So that's going to be a real test for Shubman Gill, I think.
Okay, nice. So if at all talking about pick one batter who you think like have a good run in this 5-match series, I'll just give you names: Jaiswal, KL, Sai Sudarshan, Karun Nair, Pant, Gill, Dhruv Jurel, who just pick one batter from Indian team who could have a threat in terms of batting, as well as one bowler who could have a good thing in terms of considering our conditions, because you have been.
I think, as I said, I'm particularly excited by Sai Sudarshan, but also Jaiswal is a fantastic player, and I'm really looking forward to seeing him. And I think he can really set the tone from the top. And if he and KL get off to a good start, then that will really lay the platform for Sai coming in at 100 for 1 is very different from Sai coming in at 2 for 1. So. I think that's really exciting. In terms of the bowlers, we've spoken about Bumrah. Not going to pick him.
Prasidh Krishna is there.
Prasidh Krishna would be the second one, because I just think he's got the raw pace to really kind of test the batsman out early. So I think he's going to be a handful. But Bumrah is obviously the key man. How many tests he can play, we don't know. I think he looks likely to maybe play 3 of the 5. And he could certainly win 1 or 2 games single-handedly if he rips through the top order. And I have to say, Bumrah against Crawley is already giving me nightmares and cold sweats and sleepless nights. So
exactly. So I think exactly you've touched upon the same point, and the next segment is about key English players for the series. I mean, why we have had this a particular thing as there is no central figures in terms of bowling, right? There is no Anderson, there is no Broad, and actually you have a really interesting and potential spinner who has played 16 games. And when I have gone through the 14 members, right, Chris Wokes has played 57 games, bowler, and then next best is 16.
Yeah.
But when you take at the batters, right, Pendergast, Brook, Root, Stokes, and all the players as a batting group are played like more than 25 games, except Jamie Smith. But he gives you the confidence that he has played more than 25, right? Even the how people are being looked at, but this batting attack looks settled. But when you talk about the bowlers, they don't have really that thing. So particularly in the next segment, we can talk particularly about the post Anderson and Broad era. Right now, I just want you to touch who will be the central figure in terms of the batting, as well as how things will really work for players like Ollie Pop, Jamie Smith, Jack Crawley, Brook, and latest sensation Jacob Bethel. So you just touch upon how who could be that central figure, because I'm just listing down the squad which is in the ticker, so people can see this, and then you can relate to the conversation. Yeah, Ben.
I think firstly, I'm expecting Ben Duckett to have a really good series. He's just become super reliable for England across all 3 formats, actually, and for a batsman who has such an attacking approach, famously doesn't like to leave any deliveries ever. He's actually quite hard to get out, and he can really kind of set the tone and transfer that pressure. I think route is always key. I think if he has a
goes
good
without saying.
series, if he has a good series, we'll win. There's no point talking about how good Joe Root is, because we all know how good Joe Root is. Ollie Pope, I think, I'm not even sure that he's going to play. I think that they might make the big call and pick Bethel straight away. I wrote in an article recently that I likened it to the 20 years ago when they picked Kevin Peterson over the established man Graham Thorpe, who was obviously a legend, but they thought Peterson had this higher ceiling and the talent, and they picked him. And obviously we know what happened next. And I think Bethel has a higher ceiling than Pope, and I think England know that. If Pope does play, his big 100 against Zimbabwe might just have swung it in his favour, and he might play in Headingley, but I think he's under enormous pressure straight away. He'll know that his place is under threat from Bethel. And yeah, I think, look, Pope's a fantastic player, but he looks nervous early in his innings. He looks very skittish early in the innings, and you can see him getting out for some low scores, and then the pressure ramps up. And I'd expect to see Bethel at 3 sooner rather than later. Zach Crawley, I'm not quite sure what to say about him. His numbers don't really stack up as a test opener, but he does have a good partnership with Duckett. And the management have always said, he's not picked for his consistency. He's picked for his impact.
One banging knock. Yeah.
If he gets one big fast 100 and wins us a game, I think he's probably done his job in the eyes of McCullum and Stokes. And the other thing with Crawley is he does seem to play better against better opposition. He's got a better record against Australia and India than he has against some, supposedly lesser teams. So I think, I'm hopeful. I'm not confident, particularly against Bumrah. I think that looks dangerous. Brooke, I think, is he's the long-term middle order mainstay. He'll play well, I'm sure. And we've already spoken about Bethel. He's gonna I think he'll play from the first test, but if not, he's waiting in the wings for Pope to slip up. And I think he showed in New Zealand he's got the temperament and the talent for Test cricket, and I think it's super exciting prospect.
So I think about the 11, playing 11 and those things, we will discuss in the expected 11. So right now, the thing which I have already touched upon, the inexperience of English pacers and even the whole bowling attack. So now it's post Anderson and Broad era. There is something like, Archer is also injured. You really don't have Mark Wood also in the team. So can England cope up without their experienced seamers? Because it's a drier condition. You need more experience to pick wickets. That's the thing. If it's a more the summer is how much dry it is, they need more experience is what I feel. So what's your take on the England pace attack after Anderson and Broad, considering the injuries?
I think the pace attack is probably our main area of concern as a team. And just like India losing big players, I think England really needs to adjust quite quickly to not having their 2 most reliable bowlers. Gus Atkinson looked like he was a natural successor to maybe Anderson or Broad in his first year, but since then he seems to have gone off the boil a little bit. And whether hopefully he can rediscover some form. Mark Wood's injured. We've heard talk of maybe Jofra Archer coming back for the second test. He hasn't played a test match in 5 years, so anybody's guess.
Bowling rockets in IPL for Rajasthan Royals, right?
I love watching Archer. I just think he's like a kind of Rolls Royce of a bowler. Just that kind of, his action looks so smooth. It's actually a surprise that he gets injured so often, because his action is so smooth and effortless looking. And he after going for a lot of runs in his first IPL game, he then got it together and bowled well. So fingers crossed he's back from his in another injury and bowling well. I think Wokes is probably as you said, he's the most experienced seamer and probably the most reliable. I love Wokes as a player. I think he's fantastic.
especially at home.
His home record is incredible. I think averages under 20 at home. His
Yep, yep.
his batting is really useful as well. I think, you know, if in a world where we didn't have Stokes as the all rounder, I think Wokes could easily bat five or six, and
He's
develop into a really good
actually
batsman.
for
But
Chris Oakes, right? Test cricket is his format, especially for not only for his bowling, for his batting. That is what I feel, because he gets time to really score, and those will be very crucial runs at number 6.
fan,
He is, yeah, I like him as an overall player. I mean, how valuable Ashwin is for India in India. Chris Oakes is as much as important for England in England, considering no Broad and no Anderson. This is, and I want one interesting thing which I wanted to list down few next pacers, because our viewer will get to know them. Like, say for example, like there are in the 14 we will go and touch upon the expected 11 segment. But right now I want you to just give somebody in the fringes or something who you are really excited to watch going forward, because get Gus Atkinson also kind of getting into this injury prone thing, and also his pace is getting reduced also. I think you would have noted down. So we would like to say from English perspective, what are the paces who are excites you apart from Archer or what, Mark Wood? I mean, any unknown or somebody who could really come and do it in this
I
format.
I think it's a bit of a concern actually, because they've been trying a lot of players around the edges. You know, they've tried Cook. He had a disappointing debut, given his county numbers are stellar, but he was pretty disappointing against Zimbabwe, to be honest. Yeah, Overton he's been tried before. I'm not entirely sure whether he's got the attributes for Test cricket. Maybe we'll see. I really like Cars as a kind of
Yeah,
more of a kind of enforcer, old ball. You know,
yeah.
he can execute the short ball plan quite well. Josh Tongue's another one who was disappointing against Zimbabwe. I was at
Even
Lords.
India versus India A series, he bowled really bad. I mean,
Yeah, I was at Lords for the Ashes test where I think he made his debut in that test, and he was the best bowler, the best of the England bowlers on the day that we went to. But yeah, again, disappointing recently. So, and then you've got names like Ollie Robinson that's still kind of floating around, but I think they've definitely moved on from him. And then there were new ones that they've tried. So Josh Hull, they tried. I think they liked the fact that he was really tall and had a kind of left arm angle. Maybe he'll be back.
yeah,
So we've got a lot of and there's Ollie Stone, who I think is probably injured again. He's quick and useful, but so there's a lot of players on the fringes, but I don't think you're a long way from developing a new Broad and Anderson. I think we may just have to accept that we'll never have
yeah.
another pairing
Broad.
like Broad and Anderson, and develop this kind of stable of 7 or 8 fast bowlers that you can kind of pick the best ones for the conditions and pick the ones that aren't injured, and kind of hope for the best. But yeah, I don't think we'll probably never replace Jimmy and Broady.
Yeah. So there are a couple of fast bowlers. Just I am really impressed, and one is Josh Tongue. He can be the bowling version of Jock Crawley.
You
If
think
he
so?
goes through, the day will be unbelievably good. If not, he's there. There is a reason. I mean, and also because of his action is little bit different compared to normal English bowlers, and he has an attribute to bowl in a certain way of delivery. He looks like a person who can come and have 6 for 10 and 20 what brought us in to a certain degree. And one
Mm.
more who I'm really excited is, I mean, you have touched upon Cars. How the pitches are flatter, the UK is drier. You have to hand over the ball to Cars. There is no doubt about it. He will come and bowl. I mean, hard length, and he can really. hit the splice of the bat. That is what really can make in these kind of dry UK summer is what I feel. I think these two kind of hope is more on cars compared to tongue, but tongue plays, McCallum will be happy is what people I am also feeling from India, but I'm excited. So straight away, I think we have really have to touch on the spin because it's a summer. I mean, you just explain about. I mean, I want to know how really it is very different. I mean, you are from England, so what this summer really feels in terms of the temperature and how things are feeling, and in how this and really mingle and this connect blend together, like how this spin can really have a good say in this summer.
Yeah, I think it's been an unusually dry start to the summer here. So yeah, there's a case to be made for saying that spin might have more of an impact than usual in the summer. And I don't I don't think Stokes is ever going to go into a test without a frontline spinner. I think he's shown that even when he's not bowled the spinner at all, he likes having that option tactically, and he absolutely loves Shoaib Bashir. So I think, barring injury, I think Bashir will be our sole spinner in every test. He's a bit of an enigma, really. His county record's awful. Really, really dreadful. But in tests, he just seems to come alive. He's an attacking spinner. He goes for runs. He's quite inexperienced. Stokes doesn't really mind that, but he does take wickets. And an interesting thing is that he's got a much better record under Stokes than when, for example, when Stokes was injured and Ollie Pope was captaining. He's got a much better record under Stokes than anyone else. I think Stokes really knows how to get the best out of him.
Yeah.
It's unlucky for Jack Leach, who I think, I'm a Somerset fan, and I think Jack Leach is a fantastic bowler, but he's more of a containing, don't go for many runs, but go 2.5 and over, and kind of wait for the opportunity. Whereas Bashir is much more, they like that kind of high release point. And yeah, I can see why they've gone for Bashir, but I think Leach is a little bit unlucky. But I think it's almost certain that Bashir will play all 5 tests and be the sole spinner.
So, but on Bashir, Ben, actually, I have a very, very different perspective. I think you would have seen WTC final. Nathan Lyon is predominantly a spinner who really rely on his bounce to get wickets. When the pitch is not bouncy enough during the finals, he was struggling to get wickets. Shoaib Bashir is actually the same kind. So why I've seen is because I've just seen the record. Actually, comparatively, you are expecting Bashir to be good in away, right? But actually, he's very good at home. So there is a thing that if you are getting bounce, but the England pitches are not allowing you to get those bounce. So because of his height, he can really match that. That is what the Nathan Lyon was struggled, is what I feel. Because of this high release point, Nathan Lyon couldn't able to extract the bounce, but Bashir can able to extract the bounce considering the slowness of the pitch. And he is quicker than Nathan Lyon. In terms of I'm not comparing the quality here. In terms of attributes, Bashir can have a good season. But one more thing on this is, for these kind of attacking bowler who are not consistent enough bowling and test match cricket, you need to have Anderson, you need to have Robin, or Ollie Robinson, or else you need to have Broad at the other end to have an impact, because you won't be getting a single run from other end. You need to attack Bashir. I mean, you could have known that, like, when Leach was there, his role is to contain, so other really can go and get his. But when you look at this bowling lineup of England, they are having not a consistent bowlers who can really keep it, apart from Chris Wokes. And he is also a bowler who has to really play that role of leading this attack. So somebody has to be there for Bashir to really control at the other end, so that Bashir really gets wickets. I mean, that is what it might lack in terms of tactically, is what I feel. But do you really think that Jacob Bethel, Joe Root's inclusion and their game as a bowlers will be increased in this dry summer?
I can see Root and Bethel bowling occasionally. Root is a more than handy option.
Yeah.
Ethel, I haven't seen. I've never seen him bowl in county cricket. I've only seen him bowl in white ball cricket. Aside from he bowled a couple of overs in New Zealand, but so I don't know too much about his bowling. But I can see them both bowling occasionally, maybe to get through to the new ball or to break a partnership. But I don't think they'll play a huge part. I think England are going to see India's main vulnerability as facing the kind of seaming, swinging Duke's ball, and I think that's how they'll view the series. I think spin will play a part, but I don't think they're going to be producing turning pitches, because I think that then plays to India's strengths more than it plays to our strengths, and I think they won't want to set up playing Kuldeep on a turning track. So I think, spin will play a part, but not a huge part. And I think that the other factor here is that we no longer play Test cricket in August, because August is now for the 100.
Right.
For better or worse, the ECB has decided that August is for the 100. I, I'm not going to talk about that now, because that's a whole other issue. But so we now have all the Test matches crammed into June and July, which removes that. You used to get late summer at the Oval. You might play two spinners. It would be a much more conducive, spin-friendly track. But now we're playing in the earlier part of the summer. I think spin is probably going to play less of a part than it has done historically.
Yep. So now we'll move on to Ben Stokes and his captainship in focus, because I'm tactically very, very impressed. I mean, leave about the result or something, the way he really captains a team, right? It will, as a whole world is looking into the England testing right now. We have never seen a captain like Ben Stokes, especially in an England shirt, right? The English captain's never been like Ben Stokes. I mean, so I just wanted to know, like, how tactically he can manage a naturally aggressive at an inexperienced Indian batting lineup with his inexperienced bowlers.
I think you're right. We haven't seen a captain like Stokes. I think he's a fantastic leader. He's inspirational. I think the team absolutely love playing for him and playing under him. In terms of maybe a kind of more aggressive but slightly inexperienced Indian side and Indian captain, I think Stokes will probably relish the challenge of that, playing against a more attacking team. If that's what they are under Gill, we don't know that that's how they're going to play, but I think you might be right. And I think Stokes is the guy to kind of fight fire with fire, and he's all about taking 20 wickets. So I think he'll see a more attacking attitude from India's batsmen as just more opportunity to take wickets. So, but yeah, it could be really interesting, a really interesting kind of tactical battle. And I'm interested to see how Gill. I think we know how Stokes is going to approach it, so I think I'm keen to see how Gill approaches it as his
In terms of,
counterpart.
I mean, Ben, in terms of batting, these players are actually naturally aggressive. They don't go into that naturally. If you ask them, they'll pick from 6-4-5, 6-4-3-2-1. They won't go dot 1-2-3, then I'll score a boundary and six. It's
Mm-hmm.
not about, it's like I'm trying to understand this because it's very early into this era, but these players are very natural. They are not trained to put them under pressure. A bowler is coming and bowling. It's not like they are trying to score a boundary to put the opponent under pressure. Naturally, it is what they are coming. It's very natural. They just tuck it and they can just play a cover drive. It is not any tactical behind it. They just play on the merit. That is the talent in India, right? That's the potential. Naturally, they can score boundary of the same ball, which, I mean, 5 to 10 years back, people were defending. It naturally comes, is what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
you've
think it
got
will be.
players who've now come. Their experience is white ball cricket, and they're coming through the IPL, and that's their kind of proving ground. And then they're adapting to Test cricket, and it's the same with Bethel, right? He's a white ball cricketer who's then going to adapt to Test cricket rather than it used to be the other way around. So yeah, you're naturally seeing these more aggressive stroke makers come through, and I think as a fan of Test cricket, that's really exciting for me.
Yeah, that's so. I think now I think we'll just go into home condition and tactical advantage, where I think Ben has brought up his data. Like I mean, just in this segment, we'll just try to cover venues. I mean, they are playing in Headingley, Edgbaston, Lords, Old Trafford, and Kennington Oval. So we'll try to understand which venue has a tactical advantage or towards England, as well as we'll try to look into which condition can be really helpful for this Indian team as well. So yeah, Ben. So you just go through this. I mean, which you have made, and yeah,
Yeah.
which
So
condition can be helpful. Yeah,
what we've got here is England's win-loss ratio at each of the 5 grounds that they're going to be playing at this summer, over 10 years, 20 years, and 30 years, just to give a longer-term perspective. I think you can see that Old Trafford is by far our ground that we have the best record at, both recently and historically. So I think, provided that the Manchester weather plays ball and it doesn't rain like it did for the Ashes test 2 years ago, then Old Trafford is probably our most helpful conditions. I think, followed by Headingley, where our recent record is good. You know, they always say that Headingley is exceptionally helpful for swing and seam, particularly if it's cloudy. They always say look up rather than down at Headingley, and if it's cloudy, then you bowl first. So I think that's probably the ground that's more helpful, or most helpful for us seamers, though also that helps Jasprit Bumrah and the likes of Prasidh Krishna. So that could be a double-edged sword. I think the Oval, as we touched on before, used to be seen as the most spin-friendly track, and I think, you know, even I remember England often used to pick 2 spinners there, but I think those days are gone now, especially as we don't play in August. So I don't see any of these pitches being particularly conducive to spin. Yeah, other thing to note is that we've got quite a historically poor record at both Lords and the Oval, compared with some of the other grounds. So yeah, poor record in London. So I think if India can make it through Headingley and Edgbaston, maybe with the series level, then they're going to really want to get a result at Lords before we go to Old Trafford.
yeah. That's what I mean. And yeah, I think you have touched upon. So for Headingley, going into the first match preview, we'll be doing it in Tamil. So it will come in the next. So after this video, you can expect that video particularly. So do subscribe and go and see Ben's work in Substack, and then do give feedback to both of us as well. So Ben, I think we have had a discussion on how the home conditions, and I think we have given our viewers a very brief about that, and where India has to take it from where, and which condition will help, which ground will help England so that they can dominate. Now we'll just move on to England's expected 11 and players' role, clarity, and the balance and the identity of the side. So it's in Tinker, guys. So this is what myself and Ben are expecting. These are the 11. So just go through that. I mean, what role plays, especially I think we had an off air also, we are discussing about Bethel / Ollie Pope. Could you please brief on that?
Yeah, so I think just running through the team, you've got Crawley and Duckett. They'll definitely open. They'll set the tone and be aggressive up front. We'll see how Crawley gets on against Bumrah. And then I think you're going to have Bethel open in at number 3, which is going to be a real challenge. It's exciting, but I think he's going to play instead of Pope. And then Root is just so stable. He's good against spin. He's good against pace. He does
Nothing to explain.
he can be 30 or 40 off 40 or 50 balls without looking like he's played an aggressive shot. I think he's your anchor in your middle order, really. Brooke is your game changer at number 5. Stokes, we know all about Stokes. I expect him to bowl a bit more this series. He bowled well against Zimbabwe. Jamie Smith, I think they think he's a generational talent. You know, next Adam Gilchrist is what I've heard. So looking forward to seeing him living up to that billing. And then the bowling attack, I think, is probably where it gets interesting. I think Wokes will certainly play. His record at home is exceptional. And then Cast, I think, is also quite exciting in the kind
So
of.
do you think Tunk and Cars will, Oaks and Tunk will share the new ball and then Cars will be the first change?
I think so. Yeah, I think Cast is more of that kind of old ball. Maybe get it reversing a little bit, and if Stokes needs to go to that short ball plan, Cast is the man to run in and just bowl bouncers all day.
So
And then and then you've got Bashir, who's definitely a number 11 with the bat, but he'll definitely play all 5 tests, I would imagine.
I'm also agreeing to it, but only one thing is that Ollie Pope has been touted as like vice captain, and then later he really has taken. I would really call him as England scale Rahul. I think he has taken a glove for the country also when he has really traveled abroad, and then he really asked him to bat at wherever the number he has did it. But suddenly, right now, I think we need to go in where we are expecting. But there are times there might be a possibility that Ollie Pope might get the first 2 games, and based on his, then the whole career will go and he will be like a person who will be on the bench through and through in his life. But I think hopefully, personally, I want Ollie Pope to start because of those innings which he really played in India. So those are the things you need to get. Like that is what no Pat Cummins actually talked about that in WTC final. Why you have really backing Manas Labuschagne to open instead of Sam Constas? His reply was only one thing: those players who performed and them really dragged us here, right? So we need to give them we need to back them. Those players who really taken us here. So I think this Brendan McCullum and Ben Stokes, this Bazball era, has really a little bit of Ollie Pope's touch to it as well, as a captain, as the whole player, as a leadership group, right? So I personally want to start, but I think we both are agreed to that Bethel might start. But personally, I want Pope to start. And couple of questions, Ben, on this thing. One is Ben Duckett actually averages less in home compared to away. The same with Harry Brook. Okay, in terms of Ben Duckett, actually is a very very good player. There is nothing to take because the focus always goes towards Crawley. Even I like Ben Duckett because of the volume of runs he brings to the table, right? He's not stylish, he's just there, he just scores runs. It doesn't necessarily matter, right? But one thing about Ben Duckett which I'm worried is he always scores 50s, not hundreds. He always gets out in 70s and 80s. Do you think that that has to be changed, or is it a concern? Or because as a top order, right, when you get set, how like Aiden Markram got it a bigger one, right? That really make a very very good difference. I mean, it can be the difference of losing and winning, right? Considering you have an inexperienced bowling lineup, right? You need 40, 50 runs extra. What do you think about Ben Duckett? You can add Harry Brook also in terms of that.
I think it's definitely a valid criticism. I remember when people used to say that about Joe Root as well.
Yeah.
So I think maybe that will come with time. But I think particularly in this kind of new era under Stokes and McCullum, they want him to just keep going hard. If he's going well and he's 60 from 60 balls, they don't want him to start thinking about his 100. They want him to accelerate, if anything, and really put the pressure even more on the opposition. And so I think.
So he's sticking on to his role, is what you're saying. But I think if he takes it to another level, I think it would be helpful. Considering, see, the whole point I'm talking based on the bowling attack, which can expect it to concede 30, 40 runs extra. So little bit of, just a gear down would really help is what I feel. But I agree, that is the role and the identity of Ben Duckett, and that is what I think. We are not expecting Crawley to really have a good average. It's about winning 100. And for Ben Duckett, it's about quick starts, and also Joe Root is there to do whatever he
Yeah.
wants. Doesn't necessarily need to be said enough. So I think this is what we are expecting. That would be the expected 11, and these are the things which I want to touch upon. And one more thing on Ollie Pope is that Ollie Pope is a person who can score a big 100 also at number 3, because when you see in this top order in the last WTC cycle, Ollie Pope has 300s, and then Brook has 400, and Root has 700s. So these are all the things which can make Ollie Pope and especially the top order as a match changing innings. So that is what we are. So now we'll just go in to the next one, which is how English media and public sentiment is actually right now, Ben. I mean, how is it excited, or like what are you really thinking about, like how the English people are viewing this
So I think
series?
everyone's really looking forward to this series for sure. We look forward to all Test cricket and all cricket, but particularly series against India, I think are eagerly anticipated. I think the atmosphere in the grounds is always so good when we play India.
Yeah.
There are lots of Indian fans as well as English fans. It's always really good natured. The grounds are always full. It's a real occasion, and it's something we all look forward to. I'm going to the Edgbaston Test. Really looking forward to that. I think I've also picked up on a mood of quiet confidence amongst the England fans and the media. I think we're probably expecting to do quite well, particularly given the retirements that India have had, and a relatively new side and a young, inexperienced captain. So I think we're probably going in with a reasonable amount of confidence. And in terms of how the media are framing the series, I think it is a bit annoying, but everything's seen as an Ashes warm up nowadays, or an Ashes audition. So I think I've read a lot of stuff which talks about the next 10 tests as being, 5 against India, 5 against Australia, as being kind of legacy defining for McCullum and
Exactly.
stuff. I think that's probably accurate.
Yeah. So, and like one more thing about this England series, they are actually focusing on Ashes, right? When basically whatever the bowlers they have planned for Ashes are not playing.
Everyone's obsessed with the
Everyone is
Ashes
injured,
in this country.
That's
So
the
yeah,
funny part.
Stokes and McCullum would tell you that they're taking it one game at a time. They're picking the right team to win the next game in front of them, and I think that is genuinely what they do. But the media are always going to focus on the Ashes because that's kind of that's probably what sells more newspapers. But I think
Yeah.
it's doing the India series a disservice to talk about it in terms of the impact on the Ashes. I think we just take this home summer, try and beat India over 5 tests. It should be a cracking few weeks. I'm really looking forward to it getting started.
Yeah. So before going into the prediction, the last thing, this WTC cycle and context. I mean, really, England really chasing that, or I mean, doing it, because there are a couple of things I have when we have post match, and we did a post match analysis on WTC final. When I've seen, right, this England team is one of the top. They are the most average batting averages of overall team. Okay, so runs per dismissal is on the higher side. They are the best batting team, if I have to really say. And when in terms of bowling, right, they are in after Pakistan. Actually, their bowling average in the WTC also. So first thing I want you to really touch upon whether England is in this WTC cycle context, or really they are chasing that cycle, I mean WTC championship. And one more thing is about their bowling. Looks like even with Anderson and Broad was not at all good. Right now it's very very inexperienced. And are they really wanted to chase this WTC championship is the whole point.
I think that's a really interesting question, and Ben Stokes has been quite vocal about the World Test Championship. Basically said no one understands it and no one cares, which seems quite harsh. I think fans, England fans, would prefer England to win it rather than someone else, but it's always going to be less important than, for example, the Ashes or even the India series. I think as well, it's always going to be this applies to India as well. It's always going to be tough for us to win it because we play India. England play India and Australia every cycle. India play Australia and England every cycle. So you're automatically playing against higher quality opposition for more tests. Those are 5-match series and against high quality opposition. So it's going to be harder for India or England to win it. I think for England as well, we would also need to sort out slow over rates because we keep getting penalties for slow over rates, which
That's a good point.
count against you in the World Test Championship. And I could do a whole podcast on slow over rates if it's a real bugbear of mine, but we'll save that for another day.
Yeah.
And I think people want to. I don't think there's any pressure on the World Test Championship. I don't think it's really in the management's mindset. And in terms of fans, people want to see the team win, but I don't think there's pressure to win the World Test Championship in the same way that there's huge pressure to win the Ashes.
And I mean, WTC and identity, right? Because why I'm talking about this is this team is all about identity and entertainment, right? So for the style to be really remembered after 20-25 years, right? You need a silverware, right? So there are two things which England team can achieve, in my perspective, is to uh, win India series, win an Ashes, and then win WTC finals. That's it. No need of anything. Stokes can retire, Michael can go away, and that is what. No. So I think, what do you think about this, chasing these three big thing? And it feels like a heavy lot on stake in this summer for England overall, because this team looks like, no, it's not like we are asking for Joe Root's team, which is not having an ability to score runs, having Burns or somebody in as a openers and all, right? This team deserve these three, is what personally I feel, in terms of they should try to do it, and it would really good for them to show it in the future, right? If we can play like this, and everybody will get to glue towards the TV and like whatever it is, right? So what your thing on this big chase, these three, which I'm talking about?
I think the way England will see it is if you take care of the first two, the third one will look after itself. If we beat India, say 4-1, and then we beat Australia 4-1, dreamland for me, obviously, but bear with me. Indulge that fantasy for a second and say that we win 8 out of those 10 Test matches. You're going to be really close to winning qualifying for the final of the.
Because anyway, the final will happen in lots.
Yeah, anyway, you'd be really close. You'd be really close to qualifying just on the basis of those results, as long as you don't get penalised for too many slow over rates. and then finals in Lords, so you think you got a reasonable chance with some home advantage there. So I think the attitude in the England camp is going to be focus on performing in the here and now, and kind of let the World Test Championship look after itself. But I think you'd find if we made it to the final, Stokes might suddenly understand it and care about it a bit more than he seems to at the moment. So.
Yeah. So actually, this is a question which it's been there in my mind for long. So as an Indian, or like who have not watched Test cricket in England, I predominantly wonder that why this WTC has to always happen in England. So my question to you is, if at all, are you okay with that play of like how India does in IPL? No, the first, like the, say for example, now South Africa won the trophy. The next WTC final can happen in South Africa. Would you watch it, or what's your take on this?
I would be happy for it to be anywhere, and I think in principle it sounds like a good idea to have the team that wins it hosts it next time. I think that's nice. I think there's a couple of reasons that they won't do that, and they want it at Lords. The first one is that England is probably the only place that they can guarantee a full stadium. Even if it doesn't involve the home team. You can imagine if you held the World Test Championship final in India, but it was a game between, say, England and South Africa, or Sri Lanka and New Zealand. What percentage of the ground do you think would be full? I think that's a really valid point. Whereas in England, it's always going to be full because there's enough people from all nations here, and Lords was super full and buzzing for the South Africa Australia game. So I think that's the point. And the other one is just because of the way the cycle works, they want to hold the final in June. And, so say Australia win it, or indeed South Africa have won it, how are you going to host the final in those countries in June, in the middle of winter?
That's the point. Yeah.
So I think those are probably the reasons they're keeping it in England. But yeah, from a fan perspective, I'm very happy for it to be anywhere. But those are kind of two good reasons, I think.
Yeah. So, we had a very, very good chat. So, people will expect us an Englishman to predict the series, and what does success look like? What, say, for example, either it should be only by winning the series for England, or else it's drawing the series itself is a success. You just predict and just give the stakes, as well as what does the success look like for England.
I think, first thing, success looks like winning the series. That's the first job. Try and win the series before you start thinking about whether it's kind of 4-1.
As an Englishman, you're not happy with 2-2. Drawing the series.
Having fairly recently had quite a high-profile 2-2 draw at home, I don't think we want to do that again. I think we will win the series. I think that's the main goal as well. I think 3-2 would be fine. I think if I'm going to predict, if you're asking me for a prediction, I'm going to say England 3-1.
Great.
I think Bumrah will win you one of the London tests for sure, and I think, given that it's been so dry and sunny here for most of the summer, I think the chances are the rain's going to come at some stage. And if the rain comes, it normally comes to Manchester more than anywhere else. So I think Old Trafford might be a draw. India will win at Lords, I'm going to say.
Because of the England's record.
And I think England are going to win at Headingley and Edgbaston, and then we'll see about the Oval.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, I think it was a very, very good podcast recording with you, Ben. And hopefully you write a lot more stuffs, and hope more people get to read your writings, and you just grow in this aspect as well as your life as well. So congrats and thanks for joining. And
thanks very much, Akshay. It's been a pleasure to speak to you, and look forward to continuing speaking to you in the future.
Sure, for sure. And I think people who have listened for, it would be a longer one. This is our format. So thanks for your support. For yourself only, brought an English man from there, and I have been really pleased with the conversation which we had. Do support us, subscribe us, and share and comment us. Do subscribe to Ben for his write-up as well, because the perspective from each country really values more as a overall cricketing fraternity. So thank you.